The smell of pine and cinnamon filled my living room as wrapping paper scattered across the carpet. My daughter Vienna pressed a thin envelope into my hands with a nervous smile. "Just a little something, Mom," she said, her voice higher than usual. Inside was a $2 coffee shop gift card, the kind they keep near checkout counters. I felt my chest tighten, but I smiled and tucked it into my sweater pocket. Around me, everyone laughed and chatted about their gifts. Then Vienna's mother-in-law, Vivian, began opening her present. The Gucci tissue paper fell away like expensive snow, revealing a designer handbag that gleamed under our Christmas tree lights. Everyone gasped and crowded around to admire it. Cameras came out. Vivian posed like she was accepting an award. "Oh my goodness, Vienna! This is absolutely gorgeous," she squealed, holding it up for everyone to see. I watched from my spot on the couch, still holding my gift card. My throat felt dry. I got up quietly to check on the Christmas cookies in the kitchen, needing a moment alone. Through the doorway, I could hear Vivian's voice carrying over everyone else's, describing how she'd carry her new bag to the country club. I decided right then that I wouldn't ruin Christmas, but I would remember it. After everyone left that evening, I started cleaning up the mess of torn wrapping paper and empty plates. My hands moved automatically, but my mind kept replaying the scene. I dragged the heavy garbage bag out to the curb, the cold December air biting at my cheeks. As I lifted the bag into the trash can, something white fluttered out and landed on the wet pavement. I bent down and picked it up. It was a receipt, slightly crumpled but still readable. My heart stopped when I saw the total, $8,847.32. For one handbag. I stared at those numbers until they burned into my vision. My hands started shaking, and not from the cold. I remembered when Vienna was 16 and needed braces. We celebrated finally paying them off by sharing cupcakes from the grocery store bakery. She'd been so happy, frosting on her chin, telling me I was the best mom ever. That night, those braces cost me 3 months of eating ramen noodles for dinner. But seeing her smile made every sacrifice worth it. I'd never told her about the ramen. I folded the receipt carefully and walked back inside. My phone sat on the kitchen counter, and I opened my banking app with trembling fingers. It was time to do some math. I scrolled through 10 years of bank statements on my phone, and each transaction felt like a small cut. There was the $800 when Vienna's car broke down senior year. The $1,200 security deposit when she moved into her first apartment. Another $600 when her hours got cut at her retail job. Then came the bigger ones after she married Damon. The $2,400 to help with their wedding flowers when the florist messed up the order. The $1,800 when Damon lost his job and they needed rent money. The $950 for just a few months of their cell phone bill that somehow became permanent. I added it up 3 times, hoping I'd made an error. The total came to $23,670, nearly $24,000 over the past decade. Money I'd given freely, happily even, because I thought it was what mothers do for their children. But tonight, seeing that receipt, something clicked differently. All those times I'd eaten store-brand cereal so I could send her grocery money. All those evenings I'd worked late to earn the extra cash she needed for emergencies that seemed to happen every month. I'd been speaking the language of love through my bank account. But apparently, love had a different vocabulary when it came to Christmas morning gifts. A $2 coffee card said something I didn't want to hear. The next morning, I sent Vienna a text that took me 20 minutes to write. "Coffee at my place, Sunday at 2 p.m. We need to discuss some estate planning matters." I read it 5 times before hitting send. Her response came quickly. "Estate planning? Mom, that sounds so serious. Are you okay?" I didn't add a smiley face or soften my words like I usually did. Instead, I wrote back, "I'm fine, just some things we should discuss as a family." I spent the rest of the week gathering documents, bank statements, loan records, receipts for every major purchase I'd helped with over the years. I organized everything in a manila folder, each section damoned with neat labels. The evidence of a decade of financial help, all carefully documented. I picked out my navy blue cardigan for Sunday. It was the color of serious conversations, the kind of outfit you wear when you're done pretending everything is fine. I practiced what I wanted to say in the mirror, keeping my voice steady and calm. That Saturday night, I slept better than I had in weeks. There's something peaceful about finally deciding to tell the truth. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just tired of being taken for granted and ready to stop letting it happen. Sunday afternoon, Vienna and Damon arrived 15 minutes late with apologies about traffic that didn't exist. I'd been watching from my window and the roads were clear. I poured coffee into my good cups and set out the cookies I'd baked that morning. "So what's this about, Mom?" Vienna asked, settling into her usual spot at my kitchen table. Her voice had that slightly impatient edge she got when she was trying to rush through something. I opened my folder and spread the bank statements across the table like I was dealing cards. "I've been thinking about my finances lately," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Looking back at how I've spent my money over the years." Damon shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Vienna's eyes moved over the papers, and I watched her face change as she recognized dates and amounts. "I don't make loans," I continued. "I give gifts. I help family because that's what love looks like to me. But I'm wondering if we understand love the same way." I pulled out 2 envelopes I'd prepared and slid them across the table. One had Vienna's name written in my careful handwriting. The other had Vivian's name. "I thought you might want to see how love looks from my perspective," I said. Their faces went pale as they reached for the envelopes. Vienna opened hers first. Inside was a check for exactly $2, written in my neatest handwriting. Her mouth fell open as she read the memo line, "Christmas gift, matching your generosity level." I turned to Damon and handed him the envelope Damon for Vivian. Since she's family too now, I thought she deserved the same consideration I received. Damon's hands shook as he opened it. Inside was a formal note card with gold edges that I'd bought specifically for this moment. It read, "Thank you for the lesson in appropriate gift-giving. You've helped me understand my place in this family's priorities. I'm adjusting my future contributions accordingly." The silence stretched between us like a wire about to snap. Vienna stared at the check, her face cycling through confusion, embarrassment, and something that looked like fear. "Mom," she whispered, "I can explain about Christmas." I stood up and began clearing the coffee cups, my movements deliberate and calm. "There's nothing to explain. Actions speak louder than words. I've been listening to what your actions say about me for months now." I walked to my computer and pulled up my phone company's website. With 3 clicks, I removed the extra line I'd been paying for Vienna's phone. The screen confirmed, service discontinued. Monthly savings, $87. "I'm just matching the energy I've been receiving," I said, returning to the table. My phone started buzzing before they even left my driveway. The family group chat lit up like a Christmas tree, message after message pinging in rapid succession. "Mom, you can't be serious about this," Vienna had written. "This feels really petty," Damon added. "We can talk about this like adults," came another message. I read through 15 messages of panic, justification, and barely concealed anger. Finally, I typed one response and sent it to the group. "Respect costs less than a designer handbag." Then I turned my phone to silent mode and went out to my garden. The December air was crisp and my rose bushes needed attention before the next frost hit. There's something therapeutic about cutting away dead growth if making room for new life. When I came back inside an hour later, my phone showed 23 missed messages and 4 voicemails. The first 3 were from Vienna and Damon, their voices getting more desperate with each message. The 4th was from Vivian, and her tone was entirely different. Her voice dripped with fake sweetness, but underneath I could hear something sharp and angry. "Hello, sweetheart," she began, and I knew immediately this wasn't going to be an apology. I saved that voicemail to my phone and played it 3 more times, taking notes on everything she said. Vivian's message was a masterclass in disguised cruelty. "I hope you know that some people don't understand what generous gift-giving looks like in refined families," she'd said, her voice silk-wrapped poison. "Not everyone was raised to appreciate quality or understand social expectations." I wrote down her exact words in my notebook. She'd called my reaction unfortunate and suggested I might be going through some difficulties that were affecting my judgment. The entire 2-minute message was designed to make me feel small while never directly insulting me. But what she didn't realize was that I'd been taking notes on her behavior for months. The way she'd criticized my cooking while eating seconds. How she'd made jokes about my simple lifestyle in front of other people. The comments about how Vienna was moving up in the world now that she was part of their family. I started a new section in my notebook, Patterns of Behavior. Vivian's voicemail went right at the top, along with the date and time. I wasn't building a case for revenge. I was building a case for clarity. That evening, my phone rang again. This time, it was Damon calling from his work number. His voice sounded different, smaller somehow, like he was calling from inside a closet. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "There are things you don't know." Damon's confession came in whispers and long pauses, like he was afraid someone might overhear. "I'm sorry," he began. "I didn't know about the gift card until Christmas morning. Vivian picked out your present. She said it would set appropriate expectations for the relationship." I could hear dishes clinking in the background, the sound of nervous energy being channeled into busy work. He was probably cleaning his kitchen while his mother-in-law sat in the next room, unaware of his call. "The bag wasn't Vienna's idea either," he continued. "My mom has been pushing for months about showing proper respect to family elders. She kept saying the bag would stabilize our standing with her friends at the country club." The pieces started fitting together like a jigsaw puzzle I hadn't realized I was solving. "Damon," I said gently, "are you telling me that you're in debt to your mother?" The silence that followed was answer enough. Finally, he whispered, "We thought if we could make her happy, show her we understood her world, maybe she'd help us more. We're behind on everything, and her approval comes with financial support." "Debt doesn't become dignified just because you dress it up in designer labels," I told him. "And you can't buy respect by giving away money you don't have." He sighed heavily. I know that now." 3 days later, my neighbor Diane sent me a screenshot that made my coffee go cold. "Thought you should see this," her text read. The image showed a Facebook Damonette Place listing. Like new Gucci handbag, gift, never used, $6,200 OBO. The seller's profile picture was unmistakably Vienna. She'd taken photos of the bag from every angle, still in its dust bag, with the authentication cards carefully displayed. The description read, "Received as gift but not my style. Authentic with receipt. Quick sale needed." I stared at that screenshot for a long time. The bag that had been presented as a symbol of love and respect was now just inventory to be liquidated when the credit card bill came due. The performance on Christmas morning had been exactly that, a performance with no real sentiment behind it. I saved the screenshot and added it to my growing folder of documentation. Then I called my lawyer and scheduled an appointment for the following week. It was time to make some changes to my will, changes that reflected my new understanding of family dynamics. The bag might be for sale, but my self-respect wasn't. Some things aren't for sale at any price, and I was finally ready to act like I understood that truth. That afternoon, I opened my laptop and began typing a very different kind of Christmas thank you note. At my lawyer's office, I sat across from Mrs. Peterson's mahogany desk and made the changes I should have made years ago. The college funds I'd been building for my future grandchildren stayed in place, but the executor of my estate changed from Vienna to Diane, my neighbor and closest friend. "Are you certain about this decision?" Mrs. Peterson asked, her pen hovering over the documents. "These changes significantly alter your daughter's financial future." I thought about that bag for sale online, about the gift card that had sat in my sweater drawer all week. "I'm not punishing anyone," I said. "I'm just being realistic about priorities. My money should go to people who value relationships over transactions. The new will specify that any inheritance would be held in trust, distributed based on demonstrated financial responsibility and genuine relationship building, not gift-giving performances or social media moments." Walking out of that office into the bright afternoon sunlight, I felt like I'd lost 20 pounds. My phone buzzed with a text from Vienna. "Mom, can we talk? I'm coming over." I looked at my watch. She'd be arriving right around dinner time, probably hoping I'd feed her while we talked. For the first time in years, I didn't automatically start planning what to cook. Instead, I drove to the grocery store and bought ingredients for a meal for one. If she wanted dinner, she could bring her own. Vienna stood on my doorstep at 6 p.m. with mascara streaks down her cheeks and her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked like she'd been crying for hours. "Mom, I messed up," she said, her voice thick with tears. "I need to tell you the truth." I made tea while she sat at my kitchen table, the same spot where she'd opened that $2 check just days before. Her hands shook as she wrapped them around the warm mug. "I used the money you sent for the electric bill," she whispered, "to buy the bag. I wanted Vivian to think I was sophisticated, that I understood quality. I wanted her to see me as worthy of being her daughter-in-law." The word worthy hit me like a physical blow. My daughter had been so desperate for approval from a woman who'd never shown her genuine kindness that she'd stolen from her own mother to buy it. "You are worthy," I said firmly, "but you picked the wrong person to translate that worth to. Vivian's approval isn't worth the paper your electric bill is printed on." Vienna looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "What do I do now? How do I fix this?" I pulled out a notebook and slid it across the table with a pen. "You start by being honest with yourself about what this has cost you. Write it down. All of it." For the next hour, I watched Vienna write and cry, write and cry. The list grew longer with each line. Late fees on credit cards, bounced check charges, borrowed money from friends that she couldn't pay back, missed payments that had damaged her credit score. "Add me to the list," I said quietly when she paused. "Write down what this performance cost me." She wrote my name at the bottom, then stared at the paper. "How do I write down disappointment?" she whispered. "You write trust," I said. "You write respect. You write the security of knowing your mother's love isn't conditional on your income level." When she finished, the page looked like a battlefield report of financial and emotional casualties. She'd been so busy trying to impress someone who didn't care about her that she'd forgotten about the person who'd always been in her corner. "Now," I said, "you apologize, not with more tears or dramatic gestures, with actions, with changes." She nodded, wiping her nose with a tissue. "Should I call Vivian?" "Yes, and you're going to tell her the truth. Not the version that makes you look better, but the actual truth. And I'm going to be right here listening to make sure you do." Vienna picked up her phone with shaking hands and dialed. When Vivian answered, I could hear her bright fake voice through the speaker. "Put it on speaker," I said, and Vienna complied with nervous fingers. "Vivian, it's Vienna. I need to apologize to you," my daughter began, her voice steadier than I expected. "The Christmas gift was inappropriate. I spent money I didn't have on it, and I hurt my mother in the process." There was a pause, then Vivian's laugh sharp and dismissive. "Don't be so dramatic, sweetheart. It was aspirational. That's how people grow." I felt my patience snap like a rubber band stretched too far. I leaned toward the phone. "Aspirations shouldn't run on other people's utility bills, Vivian." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, "Excuse me? The money for your bag came from Vienna's electric bill money, which means it came from the money I sent to help her. So technically, Vivian, I bought you that handbag." "You're welcome." I don't think I need to listen to this," Vivian stammered. "You're right," I said calmly. "You don't. But you should know that this family's performance budget has been permanently discontinued." The line went dead. Vienna stared at her phone, then at me. She hung up. I smiled and sipped my tea. "Good. Now we know exactly where we stand." The next morning, Vivian called back, not to apologize, but to demand a face-to-face meeting. She wanted to resolve this misunderstanding over coffee. I met Vivian at the little cafe downtown, the one with mismatched chairs and honest prices. She arrived wearing a coat that probably cost more than most people's rent, her hair styled like she was heading to a photo shoot instead of a difficult conversation. I brought props, my phone with her voicemail saved on it, and my laptop with the screenshot of the bag for sale. I set them on the small table between us like evidence in a trial. "You've been trying to purchase my daughter's loyalty," I said without preamble. "The return policy on that investment has expired." Vivian stirred her latte with aggressive precision. "I don't know what you think you're implying, but this family arrangement has worked well for everyone." I pressed play on her voicemail from my phone. Her own voice filled the space between us, dripping with condescension about refined families and social expectations. Her face went pale as she listened to herself. Then I turned my laptop toward her, showing the Damon at Place listing. Apparently your gift wasn't quite as meaningful as you'd hoped. She stared at the screen, her composure cracking like expensive makeup in harsh light. You can't keep Vienna from having a relationship with me. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair. You're absolutely right. I can't control that relationship. Then what exactly do you think you're accomplishing here? I smiled. I'm refusing to subsidize your theater anymore. Vivian's coffee cup rattled against her saucer as she set it down too hard. This isn't about money, she said, but her voice pitched higher, the way people sound when they're lying to themselves as much as to you. It's always about money, Vivian. I leaned forward slightly. The question is whose money we're talking about. Something flickered in her eyes, panic, maybe, or recognition. She glanced around the cafe as if checking to see who might be listening. I think you're misunderstanding the situation. Am I? I pulled out my phone again and scrolled to my bank app. Because I've been doing some math. $24,000 over 10 years to my daughter and her husband. And somehow, that turned into designer handbags for you while I got a gas station gift card. Her hands fidgeted with her purse strap. Vienna makes her own decisions about gift giving. With money she doesn't have, money that comes from me. I studied her face carefully. Unless you're planning to reimburse her for that bag, write her a check to cover what she spent. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Vivian's mouth opened and closed twice before she managed to speak. That's not how family works. You're right, I agreed. It's not. In real families, people don't perform wealth. They don't have to impress people who don't actually care about them. She gathered her coat around herself like armor. I don't have to sit here and listen to this. No, I said mildly. You don't. But you should know that the ATM that's been funding your family theater just closed permanently. She left without another word, her heels clicking angrily against the cafe floor. That evening, Damon called me from his car. I could hear the engine running and the sound of traffic, like he was parked somewhere private to make the call. Long, he said, and the word came out cracked with exhaustion. I need to tell you something about my mother, something I should have said months ago. I settled into my reading chair and waited. Sometimes the truth needs silence to grow into. She's broke, he whispered. Has been for 2 years. The country club membership, the designer clothes, the fancy dinners she takes her friends to, it's all credit cards and borrowed money. She lost most of her savings in some investment scheme. The puzzle pieces clicked into place with an almost audible snap. Vivian's need to maintain appearances, her push for expensive gifts, her anger when that system was threatened. She'd been using Vienna as a prop in her own financial theater. She told Vienna that showing the right kind of generosity would bring stability to our marriage, Damon continued. That your family needed to understand the quality they were joining. But really, she needed Vienna to look successful so she could borrow against that appearance. I felt a mix of anger and something almost like pity. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I was embarrassed and scared. If her friends find out she's broke, we lose the network she's been using to get me job interviews and business connections. His voice got smaller. I thought we could manage the situation until things improved. Damon, I said gently, debt doesn't become more manageable when you dress it up in Gucci. 2 weeks later, my phone buzzed with a text that changed everything. It was a photo from Vienna, grainy, black and white, but unmistakably miraculous. An ultrasound image with a tiny form visible in the center and text at the bottom, due September 15th. My anger didn't disappear, but it suddenly had to share space with something much stronger. Joy. Hope. The promise of a grandchild who would need love more than luxury, stability more than status symbols. I pressed my palm against my kitchen table and took 3 deep breaths. Becoming a grandmother was going to require me to be the adult in this family chaos. I could set boundaries and still leave room for this new life to flourish. I texted back, "Congratulations, I'm so happy for you both." Then I added, "The boundaries we discussed stay in place, but there's always room for love." Within an hour, Vienna was at my door with tears in her eyes, but this time, They were different tears, happy ones mixed with scared ones. We hugged for the first time since Christmas morning, and I felt some of the tension leave my shoulders. I want to do better, she whispered against my shoulder, for the baby. For us. Then we need to make some agreements, I said. In writing this time, she nodded against my shoulder. Whatever it takes. The next Sunday, we sat at my dining room table with pens and legal pads like we were negotiating a business contract, which in a way we were. We were negotiating the terms of respect. No more financial help unless it's directly for essential baby items, I began, making notes as I spoke. And it goes through me, not around me. No more surprise bills that turn into family emergencies. Vienna nodded, writing everything down on her own pad. What about babysitting? Scheduled childcare, yes. Can you just watch the baby while I go shopping? Calls no. And no using me as free childcare so you can attend social events designed to impress people who don't pay your bills. Damon looked uncomfortable, but he didn't argue. What about holidays? Respect at family gatherings isn't negotiable. I'm not a second-class citizen in my own family. If I'm not worthy of thoughtful gifts, then maybe I'm not worthy of hosting expensive family dinners either. We worked through scenarios, ground rules, consequences. By the time we finished, we had 2 pages of agreements that felt more like a peace treaty than a family arrangement. All 3 of us signed it. I made copies for everyone and put the original in my fireproof safe next to my will and insurance papers. Love might be unconditional, but respect apparently needed a contract. There's one more thing, I said as they prepared to leave. Vivian needs to understand these new boundaries too. 3 months later, the boundary testing began. Vivian announced she was throwing Vienna a baby shower at the country club, a formal affair with engraved invitations and a gift registry that read like a luxury store catalog. The event was planned for May 15th at 2 p.m. The next morning, Vienna asked if I would host a smaller shower for close friends and family. Something simple, she said, like what you did for my bridal shower, but for the baby. I checked my calendar and felt a familiar stirring of suspicion. What day works for you? May 15th would be perfect, maybe around noon. I stared at her across my kitchen table. Vienna, that's the same day as Vivian's shower. Her cheeks flushed pink. I thought maybe I could do both. Stop by yours first, then go to the country club? That's not how celebrations work, I said firmly. That's how you manage divorced parents, not how you honor the people who love you. She twisted her wedding ring nervously. But if I don't go to Vivian's shower, she'll be furious. She's already invited 40 people. And if you treat mine like a warm-up act, I'll be hurt. You have to choose, Vienna. You can't keep trying to please everyone while respecting no one. I could see the conflict in her face, the ingrained habit of avoiding confrontation warring with her desire to do right by me. Can't we just move yours to a different day? I'm not rearranging my life around Vivian's power plays anymore, I said. Pick a shower. Any shower, but pick one. On May 15th, I set up my backyard with simple decorations and genuine warmth. Mason jars filled with spring flowers, a clothesline strung with tiny onesies that my neighbors had brought as gifts, homemade cookies arranged on my grandmother's china plates. Nothing expensive, but everything meaningful. Vienna arrived at noon looking torn between 2 worlds. She admired the clothesline, teared up at the handwritten recipe cards my friends had prepared for her, and seemed genuinely touched when I presented her with a quilt made from squares of her childhood dresses. But she kept checking her watch. The country club shower starts at 2, she said during a quiet moment. I could stay here until 1:30, then head over there for the main event. I felt my heart close a little more. This isn't an appetizer, Vienna. This is your baby shower with people who love you for who you are, not what you can afford to give them. She looked around at the circle of women who had genuinely supported her over the years. My neighbors, her old teachers, her few real friends who hadn't been impressed by her marriage into Vivian's social circle. Then she looked at her phone, showing texts from Vivian asking where she was. I have to go, she whispered. I'm sorry, Mom. I'll make it up to you. I watched my daughter leave her own baby shower to go perform at someone else's production, and I knew that some lessons can't be taught. They have to be lived. An hour later, my phone buzzed with a text from my friend Estella, who worked catering at the country club. You need to see this drama. Vivian's credit cards are getting declined left and right. The messages kept coming like updates from a disaster zone. Caterer is threatening to pack up the food. Florist wants immediate payment. She's trying to convince the manager to put everything on Vienna's tab. Then, Vienna just walked in. She looks horrified. I could picture the scene. My daughter arriving at what she thought would be an elegant celebration, only to find chaos and unpaid bills. The performance that had cost her so much over the months was finally collapsing under the weight of financial reality. Vivian is crying in the bathroom, Estella texted. Vienna is standing in the middle of the banquet room looking like she wants to disappear. I started to text back some sharp comment about karma and consequences, but stopped, myself. My daughter was learning a hard lesson about the difference between authentic relationships and expensive theater. She didn't need my commentary on top of her humiliation. Instead, I texted Estella, "Keep me posted, but be kind. Vienna's caught in the middle of something she didn't fully understand." The next message made my blood run cold. "Vienna just left. She's coming back with something." Vienna returned to the country club carrying a familiar shopping bag. According to Estella's play-by-play texts, my daughter walked straight to the event manager's desk and quietly placed the Gucci handbag on the counter. "This should cover the outstanding balance," she'd said, her voice steady, despite the room full of people watching her every move. The manager examined the bag, made some calls, and within 20 minutes had arranged for store credit and a payment plan that covered most of the event costs. The shower resumed, but the mood had shifted permanently. Everyone now knew that the hostess couldn't afford her own party. "She didn't throw anyone under the bus," Estella texted, "just handled it quietly and tried to save face for everyone involved." I stared at that message for a long time. My daughter had finally done something selfless, not to impress anyone, but to clean up a mess that wasn't entirely her fault. She'd sacrificed the symbol of her financial performance to protect both Vivian's dignity and her own integrity. But there was more to come. Later that afternoon, Estella sent a final update. Vienna asked for the microphone. She's making some kind of announcement. I held my breath, wondering what my daughter might say in front of 40 people who had just witnessed her mother-in-law's financial meltdown and her own quiet bailout of the situation. Whatever she said, I hoped it would finally be the truth. The next morning, my phone rang before I'd finished my first cup of coffee. It was Estella, breathless with excitement. "I recorded it," she said without preamble. "Vienna's speech. You need to hear this." She played the audio over the phone, and I heard my daughter's voice, clear and strong, addressing a room that had gone completely silent. "I need to apologize to someone who isn't here, but should be. My mother has supported me financially and emotionally for years, and yesterday she threw me a beautiful baby shower with handmade gifts and genuine love. I left that celebration to come here, and that was wrong." I could hear the shuffle of uncomfortable people in expensive chairs. "I've been so focused on impressing people who barely know me that I've taken for granted the person who has loved me unconditionally my entire life. That stops today." There was a pause, then, "Mom, if you're listening to this somehow, I'm sorry. I'm going to do better. This baby deserves a mother who understands the difference between what costs money and what has value." I sat in my kitchen with tears running down my cheeks, listening to my daughter finally find her voice in front of the very people she'd been trying so hard to impress. It wasn't the perfect apology I'd imagined, but it was real.